Now, we're now seeing how threatening the new woke politics really is. Today in New Zealand's Parliament, that had to be closed down even. I mean, the West for centuries, we became rich and free partly by preaching that we all have the same rights, everyone, and we resolve our differences by argument, reason, and then a vote. That's now under threat by the new identity politics that's dividing us into tribes and races, and then that means arguments ultimately are settled by force. In New Zealand, the ACT Party, part of the coalition, it's pushing to change the woke way that the Waitangi Treaty in 1840 between the British and the Maori tribes, the way that treaty is now interpreted in a way that, you get the 70% of New Zealanders who are Maori are increasingly given an equal say to the 83% who are not. That's not democratic. And the ACT Party says, well, let's get back to treating people equally regardless of race. And a bill to do just that was put to Parliament for a vote. And then we saw that identity politics doesn't accept equal votes. Race mongers don't accept that. So a minor Maori party in that Parliament closed that Parliament with a haka, a Maori war dance, with Labour MPs joining in this attack on democracy. Here's the politician who screamed out that haka, claiming that this is the only way she knows how to behave, being, Maori.
This is all that I know, is to be Maori.
I mean, what nonsense, spare me. The ACT leader, David Seymour, who himself has Maori ancestry, called out this tribal thuggery for exactly what it was.
What I didn't hear in the debate today is a logical reason to oppose the principles in this bill. That is the real challenge for the people on the other side. I think lacking good arguments, they are behaving like that. Joining me is the panel. There's James Macpherson from the Late Debate here on Sky News, and Evelyn Ray, farmer, former policewoman and Sky News regular. I mean, James, that's all she knows, is this politician doing a war dance rather than accept a vote. And I think this is where race politics ultimately ends, right? Your response?
Yeah, well, Andrew, this is what happens, sadly, when you allow a 22-year-old into Parliament. She's more suited to being an influencer on TikTok than a representative in a democratic Parliament. At best, you would call that a temper tantrum wearing a cloak of culture to disguise it. But in reality, it's a reminder of what's at stake when you tear up the principle of equality, which she literally did. We saw on the video there that she took the bill that's under discussion and she tore it in half. When you do that, you end up with rank tribalism. And so we saw there a war dance which is designed to intimidate. Now, if intimidation doesn't work, what have you got left? You've got violence. And that's what the Brits lifted the Maoris out of, intertribal violence, to a society where we are all equal before the law and we all have a say, and we work out our differences by talking and debating principles rather than resorting to what we saw in the Parliament. It was a disgrace. And I tell you, there are a lot of Maori people, many of whom I know, who saw that and said they were shocked and embarrassed by it. She does not represent Maoris in New Zealand who, frankly, were horrified at what they saw, many of them.
I just wonder, when they want to declare a race war, do they realise that they're actually outnumbered? I mean, God forbid, if it came to that, they're actually desperately outnumbered. What are they asking for? And Evelyn, can you imagine the uproar if white politicians screamed at, got in the face of other politicians in Parliament in an intimidating way, got in the face of Aboriginal or Maori politicians?
Look, Andrew, I can imagine it, actually. I think all of us can. Let's not forget what recently happened to Pauline Hanson, and that wasn't even to an Indigenous Australian, and she wasn't even yelling. So I think that paints a pretty accurate picture of what we could expect if something like this was reciprocated and flipped on its head. But, sadly, we have to live in a country now where we're afraid to speak because of fear of social consequences and now legal ones, and we have to live with the fact that we've kind of invited this into our country, into every aspect and sphere of, you know, how we live our lives. You know, if we do not change this about our country and about Western countries around the world, our children and our grandchildren are going to look back on this in their history studies in school, and they're going to be writing essays about how we single-handedly destroyed the country because we were afraid to be called a slur, a racist or a white supremacist or whatever else they want to slap us with. And I think the only way that we're going to get out of this hole that we've put ourselves in is by saying enough is enough. You know, we need really strong politicians who, quite frankly, don't mind wearing these, you know, tired labels that they continue to slap on us, who's, you know, out of line of the narrative. And we also need a public who can really think for themselves and see through all of these smear campaigns. And, you know, Andrew, the sad part is if we can't do these two very simple things, we are going to lose democracy. We are going to lose equality under the law. And in the end, our children and our grandchildren will lose because of that.